Welcome to the Friday Everyday Podcast. This is where we share and explore how to design a thriving business and lifestyle so that we can live the lives we've always wanted to have right now.
It's where strategy meets energy work. It's where we'll unpack how to build a business that works for you and we'll make it tangible and actionable. I'm Jodi Rumack, an online business coach, and my mission is to help you grow and scale your online business to create time freedom so that you can spend more time doing the things you love with the people you love.
And I'm Brian DeCastro. As a holistic health practitioner and Reiki master, my part in this mission is to provide self-care support and spiritual guidance to business owners who are shifting to align with their next level way of being.
So come and join us here where every day feels like Friday and the vibe is fun, inspiring, and real.
Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. This moment is yours and you have earned it. This is the Friday Everyday Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Friday Everyday Podcast. I am going to be the host today. We're going to have a different format for the next episode or two, and we've mentioned this before in the preliminary episode that we were going to share a bit more about us for those that are new to us, and just to share a bit more kind of who we are and what we're up to and all that stuff, but in whatever way it relates to the context of the show and providing, value or whatever it is to the listeners that are, those entrepreneurs out there that are vibing on the Friday everyday living experience. So welcome, Jodi.
Thank you.
You are the guest today.
Crazy. I'm excited.
So no pressure on you, but I'm just gonna yeah, we're just gonna riff a little bit on a bit of your history, kind of how you've come to be in the space that you're in, but also just what things happen along the way to bring you to where you are, right? I think I'm always interested in hearing this when I'm listening to other podcasts of people that I've really been intrigued by their success or what it is they do in the world and that sort of thing. I love listening to the backstory because there's always something interesting that makes me wonder to go, how did that end up to be, sort of thing, right? So,
Right.
um, for for those who are out there that we're sharing with and in conversation with out there, if you're to begin somewhere in your storyline, start wherever you wish to start, but just share a bit of your history and how you came to be where you are today.
Okay. Well, I think I have to go back a little bit to when I was a kid because there is actually a lot that happened then that has, created the person that I am today. And so a couple of things that I think were important. Number one, I'm the youngest of three sisters. Let's start with that. I have two older sisters, one 3 years older, one is 8 years older. The crazy house with three girls in it. So that's the first thing. I was a competitive figure skater. I figure skated from the time I was, I don't know, 4 or 5 until I was 16, 17. I was in a competitive skating school. I also went to art school when I was in elementary, and I was balancing a lot of things. I was balancing 12 subjects in school because I had all the regular subjects, and then we had 5 arts subjects as well. And then skating, I was skating, depending on the year, I was skating anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week, plus competitions and all of that stuff, which usually took up entire weekends all winter long. Um, so I think those were sort of the beginnings of my time management and productivity and planning, which anyone who knows me now knows that that is something I'm super passionate about. And I think that it started there. And I was a summer camp kid. I was lucky. I got to go to summer camp every year, whether it was for a month or whether it was all summer long. I eventually became staff and head staff and program director and CIT director and unit head and all these things while I was there. I went until I was 23 or 4. And that's also really foundational to who I am today. So I think those are the first few things. And then, the story really starts, I guess I went to university. I went to McGill in Montreal in Canada. and I studied kinesiology. I was always in fitness from my skating career. And I always thought that maybe I wanted to be a physio or I wanted to be a kinesiologist or something along those lines. Um, Eventually, that led me into personal training. So I started in personal training. I actually worked at the gym while I was at university. So starting in first year, I worked the front desk. I worked a few different jobs in the gym. So I was involved there. I was on the varsity skating team as well. And then I went, well, I didn't go straight into fitness after school. I went into event planning and I got promptly fired from that job because I was not techie at the time and I had to do all this tech stuff. And my boss was like, yeah, no, this is not a fit. And I was like, you're right, it's not a fit. Every morning I was waking up going, what can I wear that is appropriate but also comfortable? Because I wanted to be in my Lululemons and I wanted to be in the gym and I wanted to be training people. And it was sort of a blessing in disguise that he came to me with that decision. And then I went into fitness. So that was very short lived, a couple of months. And then I started as a personal trainer in November 2023. So I was in fitness for years. Um, I don't know, 15 or 18 or something like that altogether. I had a long career at the biggest fitness club chain in Canada, personal trainer, manager, regional manager, open clubs all across the country, 80 or more, hired over 1,000 personal trainers and managers in that role. And this is going to sound crazy. And then I got let go from that job too. So maybe this is where the story really begins because, the first time it was like I wasn't a fit and I knew it and they knew it and that was the end of it. No big deal. And I really wasn't doing what I wanted to do anyways. But getting let go from my fitness job was a whole other story. But it's the beginning of becoming an online CEO and becoming an entrepreneur. And that's actually something that I had always talked about doing when I was a kid. And then I got into corporate and I just, went up the ranks and did all of that stuff. And I sort of forgot my dream of being an entrepreneur. And then again, blessing in disguise, they let me go from a job that I actually did love. And turns out I was actually really good at because I basically rebuilt the position on my own in my entrepreneurial journey, which is what I've been doing for the last, I think it's 12 years now. And I guess it was the sort of nudge that I needed because I wouldn't have left if they hadn't let me go. I would have just kept fighting and I would have kept wanting to prove and show that I could do it and all of that stuff. But I didn't have that choice. And so I then had to make a choice about whether I was going to go back to corporate or build on my own. And I chose to build on my own. So it's been since 2013, and there have been many lives in the last 12 of the entrepreneurial journey and who I've served and what I've done and all of that. But I think that's the nutshell of how I got here.
Yeah, just to go back to how we met, how I know you, like uh, and we'll get into my stuff at some point, but like
Yeah.
we had a similar kind of a similar path, coming out of corporate into being entrepreneurs and actually started my career more as an entrepreneur rather than an employee or a staff. But um, when I first met you, when I got to know you, I, 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 s- I really s- liked the way you were able to take an overwhelming situation like starting a business and starting a business solo or a coaching business or coaching where there's all these moving parts and helping you narrow it down to like the most critical simple steps, right? Um, I picked up right away, having never worked with you in the same organization when you were working in corporate. I picked up right away on how you thrived and loved working with leadership and leading teams and developing. So that's kind of how we started. I was with you, like you were coaching me professionally for about 6 months in the beginning of my of versions of my business in 2016. And and it got like I knew nothing because I didn't learn anything in the environment that I was employed in. So I found I really was able to take some simple things and move forward with it, right? But we've remained friends ever since, and you know, sort of more than friends now. So
Sort of.
yeah,
Well, we live in the same
yeah,
house.
yeah,
I think it's more than friends now.
yeah. And but there's been a lot of things along the way, which I don't know if it will come up or not, but a lot of things along the way that's really um had us get to know each other at a much deeper level, having gone through like a pandemic and all the things that happened there with a lot of our friends, loved ones, inner circles and stuff
Yeah.
and sort of like, you know, there's so many different things that have come into play in the time that we've come to know each other and say it was like almost 10 years now we've known each other.
Ah.
So, what's interesting, what I pick up from also from what you shared in the beginning was it was very clear whether you liked it or not, you were going to take a different path,
Yeah.
right? Whether that was a conscious decision, maybe the universe intervened or responded to your wherever it was your head was at the time and delivered an opportunity, which is kind of similar what happened to me. I had a similar opportunity where I was paid to leave. So, um, when you think back to your childhood and stuff, like, can you
Mm.
look back and almost see that you were always like that? You always kind of wanted to try a different path or
Mm.
or move in another direction other than what is just a naturally sort of imposed on us growing up as kids. Go to school and get an education and get a job. Like, were you always kind of like that, or has it kind of something you've discovered along the way on your journey?
Mm. Okay. I might go on some different tangents here, but I think there were certain things that I always knew that I wanted, and I didn't care if it was against the grain or not, or if it was what everyone else was doing or not, right?
Hmm.
I did know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I was younger, and I sort of forgot along the way and then eventually landed back there. I knew that I wanted to go away to university. I started saying it in grade nine, and
Hmm.
my parents were like, good luck to you. You can pay for that.
Hmm.
And and I knew I was going to make it happen, and I did. And my parents did help me, but I they helped me pay for my rent when I went to university. They paid for my rent, but I paid for all of my bills. I paid for all of my tuition, all of my books, all of my groceries, like everything except rent. They paid rent, which was amazing, and
Hmm.
I did everything else. So there were certain things that I knew. I knew that I was going to go away to school. I knew that I was going to go to a school that wasn't where most of my friends were going. I knew that I wanted to be on my own. I knew that I was never going to, um, just fall in line
Hmm.
just because. So that theme is something that has definitely carried through for me. I like to what I call live in the gray. I don't worry about what other people are doing or saying or whatever. I do what I think is best for me or for the people around me. Um, you might even see it in my coaching where all the gurus are saying one thing and I'm saying something totally different. So I think there's that. Did I know for sure that I would end up as an entrepreneur? No. I really loved my corporate job and I loved the company that I worked for, even though it didn't work out in the end. Um, I learned a lot there. I made great friends there. I grew as a person there. And so did I know I was going to end up here? No, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad that things didn't work out because if they had, I'd be still doing the same job 10 years later, and that wouldn't have worked either because I would have been bored and I would have wanted to move on and I
Hmm.
wouldn't have known where to go. And this way it was like I didn't have a choice, and so I had to figure it out. And there was a
Yeah.
lot of figuring out, which we could get into. There was a lot of figuring it out along the way. And there were a lot of sacrifices made, and there were a lot of changes made. And there was a lot of digging deep happening in the last 10 years to be where I still am today because 100% it was not easy to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I feel like at the time when we were coming into the industry, I've had these conversations before in the past, is the industry was in a new kind of upswing, especially in the 90s, right? 90s, early 2000s, it was in a different upswing where um, people were making pretty decent careers in simply something like one-to-one personal training, you know, hourly rate, filling your schedule. Like some were making an amazing living that way, finding their own, carving their own sort of niche in the industry. Um, I remember the early stages too. You'd had to actually go out and buy a tangible book and hope you bought the right book to read from to learn what some of the experts were doing before you. Um, if you knew how to use the internet, if you had high-speed internet, you might be able to find some scientific journals or whatever. If you were the type of person that did that kind of research, which I was
Yeah.
not, right?
And neither was I.
Yeah, I learned from competitive sport and my just desire to maintain a certain lifestyle that I enjoyed um after getting a taste of corporate and having to be somewhere on somebody else's agenda. And I didn't fuss about it at work every day, but it was one of those things I realized. I just kind of felt always that this is not going to be the forever thing,
Mhm.
right? So, for us to sort of carve our way through that, it was an interesting time. You'll never have a similar time like that, right? Like a lot of the new trainers coming into the industry now have access to pretty much everything at their fingertips, literally, right? So it's a different thing. And also to your point, there's no clear cut way or instruction manual on how to be successful in fitness, online coaching, or whatever. Like there's a lot you'll see now on your feed of all these experts claiming they have the system that works. But ultimately, we did have to find our way and trust our gut, right? Trust that, at least cross off the things that are at least like are like deal breakers that are we're not interested in doing long term, but also finding your way without getting distracted and trying to find the way that you can uniquely bring yourself out as well. Yeah, so the last 10 years, obviously you've been through a lot. I think a lot of us have, but as regards to how it was for you, um, as far as your biggest challenge over the last 10 years, what would it be, and how would you describe your journey and your process of moving through all of that and getting to where you are right now?
Oh man, such a big question. It's been a roller coaster, honestly. When I left or when I was let go from my corporate job, they had paid me out a little bit. I had some to kind of last for a little while. I I was in like a middle to upper management role, and so trying to find a job at that level was really hard, especially when I didn't have one. So there was a lot going on there in terms of even getting interviews and trying to get in places and stuff like that. And so while I was doing that, I was also dabbling in entrepreneurship and figuring out if I wanted to run my own business. And about a week after I was let go, there was a big fitness conference. And I decided, like, I know I'm going to see everybody that I know from my old job. I know people are going to know what happened. And I'm going to decide to go anyways because they can think whatever they want and I don't care. So I went and I ran into an old colleague and friend. He actually used to be my trainer. And I ran into him and he was like, Jodi, I'm so happy I'm seeing you. And I was like, okay, like I'm happy to see you too. What's up? How are you? It's been a long time, whatever. And long story short, he ended up telling me that he was running his own studio now. He was building his own independent personal training business and he needed help. And I said, well, you're in luck because I'm not working at that company anymore and I'm on my own. And let's try to work together. So we set up a little bit of a deal and I gave him a really great hourly rate at the time. And he knew I was testing things out, and I knew he was testing things out, and that was completely fine. And we ended up working together for 2 years, and we built a six-figure business for him. So in the meantime, some of the corporate locations had gotten back to me and offered me jobs and all that stuff. But I was like, no, I'm already on this path. You guys took way too long. So I'm over here. And so the first business was actually recruiting. I was trying to help fitness clubs and studios find great personal trainers. I always felt like there was such a gap there. And so I was trying to do that. I was also doing some coaching consulting type of stuff for brick and mortar studios and clubs. And I did that for, I think it ended up being about 5 years, but somewhere along the way, I think about 2 years in, it was like the cash that I was paid out was gone and I wasn't quite making enough. And I was living in my own condo that I bought with my own money and done the whole thing and living there on my own downtown Toronto. And I had to make a decision because either I was going to go back and get a job so I could pay for my mortgage and I could live there, or I had to go to my parents and ask them if I could move back into their house. Luckily, they have a basement apartment. And so that's what I did. So I was in a whole bunch of debt already. And I remember the day where I went to my parents' house and it was like midday. My dad was at work. My mom was retired already, so she was home. And I'm having this conversation with her, and the tears are flowing. And I'm saying, and I guess I was 35 at the time. And I'm like, I need to sell my condo. Can I move home? And my mom said yes. My dad said yes. And I sold my freaking condo. And I took the proceeds that I made from it. I made a bit of cash on it. I took that money, I paid down my debt, and I started building. And I ended up, I was making some money who hadn't quite replaced my income from my corporate job yet, but I was making some. And so when I moved home and my debt was paid off, I was able to start kind of building again. So I hired a coach. That was probably 2016 when I met you, but I was working with someone as well. And she helped me quadruple my income that year. Like something I wish I would have done way earlier, hire the coach.
Hmm.
But I quadrupled my income, and that helped me to get to replacing my corporate income. And I started making money, and things were rolling, and everything was cool. And I actually ended up working for her inside of her seven-figure online business as the head coach and helping coach people online as well. So I had built my business online. I was working with brick and mortars, but I transitioned into working with her in her seven-figure online business. I learned a ton. That was such a great experience too. And I ended up leaving though about 18 months later, personal stuff going on. I just wasn't in the headspace to be trying to show up for somebody else. And I decided to let that go. And then through that transition and through that sort of turmoil, in my life at the time, I decided eventually that I was ready to start again. And so I launched this business in April of 2020. And even since then, there have been a lot of changes. There's been changes in offers and avatars and pricing and back and forth and making big decisions about how I'm showing up and where I'm showing up and all that kind of stuff. And there have been times where, since I've started this business, I've hit that six-figure, a year mark multiple times. Um, and at the same time, there have been some major dips. There have been times when something happened, there was a change. I hired a coach and it didn't work out. That's a conversation for another day. Um, there's definitely been highs and lows along the way in the last 6 years too. So almost 6 years. But I wouldn't take back any of it. I wouldn't change any of it. It has all been character building, as they say. And earlier on in a conversation, you had asked me, we talked about quickly, sort of like sidelines, you had asked me who the people were who helped me. And my original answer was, I don't have anyone like that. But as I'm telling you this story right now, I'm thinking, that is so not true. Right? That's crazy. That's so not true. Obviously, my parents were huge support. They were amazing. No, I don't live in their house anymore. But they were incredible. Uh, I have one of my best friends is also an online coach, and she is my hustle buddy through and through, day in and day out, 6 times a day on the phone, running our strategy. We basically run the same business side by side, but with two completely different avatars. Um, I have a couple others. I have a couple friends in the UK who I've met online but have become some of my really great friends. We've traveled together and stuff like that. Definitely been a huge support as we've done this. My best friend Lisa, who we've been best friends since we were 5 years old. I actually started the beginnings of the business that we launched in 2020 was actually with her. We didn't know we were starting a business at the time, but that's what it turned into. She decided since to leave. She had her own stuff going on in her life, and that was totally cool. And don't worry, everything's still great with us. Um, People always ask me that. But yeah, there were a bunch of people. And then, of course, you, right?
Mhm.
As we've transitioned and as we've changed and as we've evolved, and certainly, since we've been together and since you decided to join the company back in November 2024. So yeah, lots of ups and downs, lots of stuff I didn't expect, lots of things that I thought I'd never get out of. I went back to babysitting at 35 while I was still in the condo so I could make some money to make sure I could pay my mortgage. And I say back to babysitting like I did it before, but I didn't. So I was actually babysitting for the first time when I
Mhm.
was 35 years old. And, behind the scenes, so no one would see me, so no one would know that I had to get this other job so I could make my money and pay my mortgage. Like, just, I've been through it up and down, debt, no debt, really successful, making the six figures, getting all the people's support, and then also the naysayers. There've definitely been a bunch of those. It's it's been all over. But here we are, still standing and still going and starting something brand new. That's super exciting.
Yeah, I think that's the part that not everyone is aware of when they see you sort of at in a certain light, right? They don't realize that, you know, for one, maybe some do know that it's there's a a steady climb or a path you have to go through. There's peaks and valleys and stuff. I would assume people would think that's part of the territory, but you don't always hear the stories. You don't always hear what people went through. And, I
Mm.
always, one of the questions I always have for people that have been quite successful is like when you wake up in the morning and you're like buried in it or you're not even close to where you need to be and there's bills and responsibilities and all these different things like that is the reality of being an entrepreneur is
Yeah.
you're not exempt from responsibility and and other things a lot of employed friends would say it must be nice to go to a coffee shop and whatever at one in the afternoon and hang out well yeah but like there's things I need to be doing, or else there is nothing to pay bills with at the end of the month, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like, when you're employed, not that I would ever do this, but like, there's certain, situations where you could be collecting a salary and there's some days where you could give like 10%, but
Yeah.
still get paid the same,
It just
right?
isn't, it's a completely different world, right? It's like the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, where typically, although we know a little differently now, but
Yeah.
typically when you have a job, it's meant to be secure. You go to it day after day, you do the job, you get paid, the check comes on time, like all of that stuff, especially when you work for big corporate like we did. I never had to worry if my check was coming or not.
Yeah.
So that always happens. And in entrepreneurship, yeah, it does give us the flexibility to go to a coffee shop at 1 o'clock in the afternoon if we want to and decide what we're doing with our schedule, which again, like this is exactly what this is all about, right? Friday every day and being able to do what you want to do.
Hmm.
And entrepreneurship gives us that flexibility, but with that flexibility, with that opportunity also comes the knowing that there are going to be days that are going to be really hard,
Yeah.
to suck, right? And there are going to be months where your revenue's lower than you expected it to be, or something happened, or you're making a change like we did this year, where, like, truth be told, the revenue had to drop because we were changing our avatar. We were
Yeah.
changing our offers, right? So we weren't selling and selling the way that we used to because we were in the middle of a change. So of course the revenue is going to go down, right? So
Hmm.
there are just these realities of being an entrepreneur where yes, we get to live this life where we get to decide what our schedule is, and no one's telling me that I have to stay inside the building when it's gorgeous outside, which, as someone who went to summer camp all year long, I'm not doing that. And you know, but there's good and bad that come with both, right? And so when we take the good, I sound like the facts of life now. We take the good, we take the bad as
Yeah.
well, right? And I've woken up many mornings thinking, do I need to get a job? Oh
Hmm.
my God, how am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to pay my rent? My debt is racking up. Like,
Hmm.
been there and done that, right? But at the end of the day, when you're an entrepreneur at heart and you know it, when you have those days, yeah, you can have them and you can wallow for like an hour or two, and then you
Hmm.
got to get on with it,
Yeah.
right? And then you pull yourself out and you go, there's no freaking way I'm getting a job. I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
So I better figure out what I can do right now to make this thing happen.
Yeah, and it's not even like you think you're above getting a job or anything like that. It's just it's in your cells. It's in your cells that I just that's not who I am. It's not where I want to be. Yes, I'll do what I need to do if I have to or if I need to, whatever. But at the same time, it's just in if I had my choice, I'd rather it be on this path, right? This way,
Absolutely.
right? And I feel that again, when people see sometimes what they see on the outside, they assume, I don't know what they assume, but there are moments that you definitely have to really have a gut check and go, well, is this the path? Is this where we're going? There's also things too that you don't factor in when you start a business is you don't realize there's going to be version one, two, three, four, and five of this idea you had. I also learned too that um I you dream up ideas that are like ahead of their time, and then you try to launch them, even though you know what they really are meant for, and you realize down the road, 5 years down the road, you're like, oh shit, this makes sense now, this piece. But
Literally happening to us in real time.
yeah. Yeah, I actually needed to do this thing first to get there, but I was trying to do the thing and then, and like I mean when I in 2016 too, when I was on social media, like the only reason I upped my social media or went to Instagram or whatever is because I was now an entrepreneur again. And my cousin who's in marketing, digital marketing said, a lot of your people are in Instagram. So
Yeah,
I went on. I would have never otherwise personally gone on
right.
there,
Same.
right? And I was really engaging with social media when my business started. And when I look back, it would be nice to just not have to do that if I
Yeah,
didn't have to. But it feels like that's how I let people know I exist, right? Or what I'm up to or whatever, right? So there's paths you got to take that no one's really like, I mean, it's also if someone's to teach you this, they can't really teach you in a linear fashion, right? Like it's where are you at right now and what is the first step, but it might be different from the other person, right?
for sure.
So I think what it is with a lot of people, and probably a large percent of the population, is a lot of people just are don't have the stomach for that kind of uncertainty.
Absolutely.
Right?
There are a lot of people who don't. Like, I don't know what
Yeah.
the percentage is, but the percentage of entrepreneurs in the world is actually quite small, right?
Yeah.
Even though most of our cities and towns and countries, at least US and Canada, are built on small businesses.
Yeah.
But the percentage of people who are actually running them, it's very small, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, it takes a certain type of person, and it takes somebody who's going to be resilient. I was actually saying this to one of my nephews the other day because he's almost 10 and he was, this story.
Mhm.
He was in he does kart racing, and he was in a race, and there was some stuff that went on that he wasn't happy about. And at the end of the day, I just said, look, like, this is actually the best thing that could happen to you because you are going to be so freaking resilient in life because
Hmm.
you are going to these competitions and you're showing up and typically is doing really really well. And when things don't go well, especially when you are normally doing well, it can be even harder sometimes, even like especially when you're little, you're a kid and you're learning. And I said the number one thing that you can do right now is just come back and just try again. Like that's all I cared about. And the skill of being resilient is what is going to help you to get where you need to go. And that will help you in life no matter what you're doing. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you don't have resilience, if you don't have that backbone, if you don't have a thick skin, forget it.
Yeah.
Not happening,
Yeah, I
right? So
think
this is like the number one characteristic.
yeah, yeah. I think we learn it early in school too, because in school it's an environment where if you get the answer wrong, there's a consequence of not getting the grade, which
Yeah.
actually your grades are what allows you to move to the next stage in the
Yeah.
process, right? So there's a fear people have around getting something wrong. But getting things wrong as an entrepreneur means you just learn a lesson
Yeah.
and there's a
Well,
potential to upgrade and to build more from what you've learned from the lesson. Almost like if you're not fucking it up, you're not trying hard enough because you're not being bold enough, right?
yeah.
Um, we've all had, as entrepreneurs, we've all had those moments where we had this amazing idea and we go to launch it and nobody takes us up on it, right? Like
Yeah.
we've had that before. And there's other times where, I found there's other times where I've just came up with an idea that I just kind of I'm like, I just want to do this regardless. Like, I don't care if it's profitable or whatever. I'm just like really compelled by this. I want to try it. And those sometimes end up being the most successful ventures because my passion comes through and I'll do the extra hours, I'll do the extra work to make it successful, right? And yeah, it is a different kind of experience or path to take, right? And the truth is nowadays employment is not necessarily stable anymore. It's not necessarily reliable because at any moment someone can snap their finger and decide they don't want you in their organization anymore,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it's just as volatile as being an entrepreneur, right? So
Yeah,
at the end
so
of the day, I'd way rather choose the entrepreneurial route and be actually more in control of my destiny and my life and where I'm going and how much money I'm making and all that stuff than be in a corporate environment. That's just me.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, just to sort of like there's a couple other, ideas or questions that I have that I'm kind of stirring up in my head here. Um, but if you were to think about whoever it is that might be listening right now,
Yeah.
um, whether they're on the treadmill walking or just like listening in their car or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, if you were to speak to them right now, like first describe who they are, but if you were to speak to them directly right now, um, what would you share? What would you share with them, or what would you say? Like, what would you, what would you ask them? Like, what would it be if you were to speak directly to that listener?
Okay, so first, the typical listener for us would be an online coach. It would be somebody who's trying to grow their coaching business, whether they're starting out, whether you're already, making six figures and you want to scale, like doesn't matter. You are an online coach who wants to grow and scale your business because you want to find time freedom. And maybe you're also looking for location freedom and financial freedom and all of that stuff. But the number one is the time freedom and also the freedom to do whatever you want to do. You make your decisions, not be told what to do, not have to ask for permission, all of that kind of stuff. So that would be like the who. And I think the biggest thing that I would want people to take away is to really trust yourself because I have seen time and time again where ideas that I had years ago have come back to me. And I trust and believe that every side step that happened from having the idea in the first place to executing it needed to happen. I don't believe that I should have started it then or anything like that. But at the same time, I also just want to, drive home the idea that it's so important to listen to yourself and don't get caught up in what the gurus are saying or even what we're saying, right? You always, always, always have to check in with yourself and make sure that what you are planning to do, the strategy you want to try, the way you want to show up, the platforms that you're on, whether you want to do short or long form content, whatever, all of those decisions, you need to trust yourself. And even if it goes against what someone else is telling you, even if you're paying them, even if they're your coach, if you don't believe in it and you don't think it fits, be open to the fact that it might and make the decision that works the best for you.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a huge one. The longer we spend in an industry or developing a skill or a practice or an art form, uh, the more we realize um, a lot of it is just a lot of our best stuff is inside of us,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, we go out there to learn from others that have done some things ahead of us and capture the essence of maybe their lessons, their skills, what they've learned. But we can't imitate them, right? We were inspired by them. But
Yeah.
in the end of the day, what I'm learning the most right now myself as well is to go back inside and go, what is really inside there that you can bring out, right?
Yeah.
Um, if
I
you're
want
to if that we went to a conference a little while ago and one of the speakers said something along the lines of, what do you not what will you not stand for, or what is the hill you would die on?
to.
Whether it be in life or in the business sense, what comes to mind when you think of that? Like, what is the thing that you just know deep in your cells is just what you're either here to do or what just makes up an essence of what drives you? Like, what would that be?
Well, those are sort of a few different questions.
Mm.
Um, hmm. Okay, let's do the one that drives me. The
Mhm.
hill I want to die on. I might need to come back to that.
Yeah.
But what drives me, you and I have had this conversation multiple times, but the biggest driver for me is wanting to be able to take care of my family as
Mhm.
and whether that is my parents and making sure that they, are taken care of with whatever they need and they can take care of themselves. They actually don't need me.
Mhm.
But in that small chance that they need something, or if I can provide something that will help them, whatever, I want to be able to do that, and I don't want to have to worry about it. I don't want to have to think about whether I can quote unquote afford it or not. Like, that's the money driver for me. I want to be able to leave behind for the people that I love,
Mhm.
whether that's my nephews or my sisters or friends or whoever else I decide. And I want my nephews to see what is possible. I want them to see what they can do. I want them to see there's more out there. I want them to see that they don't have to work in a job if they don't want to. And, they're still all young right now. I have twin nephews who are almost 10, and then my older nephew is 14. And they're all creative and smart and amazing in their own ways. And I want them to see that Auntie Jodi went and did what she needed to do and showed them that they can do whatever they want to. So I
Mhm.
think those are, they're not uncommon. I think a lot of people have this same inner like drive for their family. Um, and of course, I want us to be able to do whatever the hell we want to do too, right,
Yeah.
in our life, and to be able to, put into action some of the dreams that we have
Mhm.
and make that happen for ourselves. And I believe that we can. And so it feels like we are being compelled to do more and bring more and show up more in the world so that we can become the people that we need to be in order to reach the goals that we have.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. And so here's the path to doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're to make a wish for those out there that you want to see win, what would that wish be?
Mm, my wish is for people to never have to say, I can't. I don't want people to have to feel like they have to say they can't go to the event. They can't go for dinner. They can't go to their kids' soccer game. They can't make the money that they want to make. They can't buy the house. Like, I don't want people to have to say I can't. I want people to feel like they're in control. They have the means and they have the method to do it. It's like, when you listen to people talk about millionaires and billionaires, it's like if they lost their money tomorrow, they make it back. Like, they know how to make money. And
Hmm.
I want people to feel empowered and feel confident in the knowing that A, they can build a business, and B, if something ever happened, they could do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the biggest wish. And then of course that they have, like I said, the time freedom to do whatever they want while they make their money. So that they don't
Hmm.
have to be working 14 and 16-hour days. They don't have to be, if you're still in a part-time job, you don't have to be sitting in traffic all day long. You don't have to have a boss who's telling you that you can't go to your kid's hockey game.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is the stuff I don't want anyone to have to say I can't.
Yeah. I get that totally. I really resonate with that as well. If you were to if you just share some sort of next step or action someone can take right now, say they're on the edge of assuming their rightful, you know, level of greatness or whatever it is they want to do next. They're sitting there
Yeah.
looking out the window, wondering what is available for me out there. Like they haven't maybe taken that first step yet. Like what would be an action that they can take first if you were to think about those people?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes that online coaches and certainly other entrepreneurs make is that when they do something, they do it for a very short period of time before deciding that it's not working.
Hmm.
And so if I had one, actionable for people, it's to choose one thing that you are doing. And this could be for your lead generation. That's a great example of what, people do, where people do this. Choose one thing, choose one method, do it every day for 30 days. Like if you're sending DMs, great. If you are hosting workshops, great. If you are running ads, great. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you need to stick with it that matters, right? Stick with it, refine it, work on it. Don't decide that it's not working so early and so quickly. So when people actually stick to something and they execute the thing, the way that they are supposed to, not, oh, well, I did it 20 days out of 30. No, 30 days out of 30, right?
Hmm.
Pick the thing, do the thing, and refine the thing, whatever it
Hmm.
is. That would be my number one. And I think if more people did that, it's just like we talk about in our Becoming the CEO online co-working program. Like, this is where people actually get the work done and
Hmm.
do the shit that they don't want to do or that they wouldn't be compelled to do or wouldn't be disciplined enough to do on their own,
Yeah.
right? Get it done. Figure out
Hmm.
what it is, work on it, make it happen, do it every day and figure it out instead of bouncing around all the time, deciding things aren't working and trying the next shiny object thing.
Yeah, totally. It's the simplicity is almost like baffling for some people how it was for me too. Like it's like really it has to be that it's just that simple.
Yeah.
But then I realized when I try to execute on a simple plan, I was like, wow, how much my ego wants to complicate this and create drama and that's where all the interesting things start to come up, right? So um
When we do your episode,
yeah. Yeah.
all that.
Awesome. So this has been great. I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next, both in the next episode, but also in future topics that have been coming up lately for us in our space, both in personal and in business life. And looking forward to answering a few more questions or riffing on some more conversation about this non-linear experience of being an entrepreneur, especially in the online space. So. Thanks again for sharing, being a bit vulnerable and sharing a bit of your backstory and a little bit more on you. And we look forward to future conversations.
Thank you so much and look forward to your episode next.
All right, here we go.